Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Cinderella is moving on. Can NC State keep this probable run going into the championship game on the men's and women's side of college basketball? But wait, isn't UConn winning it all in both the men's and women's tournaments? And it's the time of year where we talk about the Cleveland Browns winning something. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The North Carolina State men were a shot or maybe a Virginia foul away from not even being in the NCAA tournament. Now they're headed to the Final Four. And the NC State women are having a heck of a tournament themselves. Ken Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack joins me now. And Ken, let's talk about the men to start. 11 seed. They get in because they win the ACC tournament. Excuse me. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Winning.
I was just like, go ahead, get ahead. Go ahead, get ahead, baby. If you got the script, let us know.
Yeah, we'll talk about it with our friends at FanDuel later. They get in. They beat Duke, their ACC rival, 76-64 on Sunday. What has been going on? What has keyed this magical run?
What's keyed this magical run is getting rid of one of the worst diagnoses you could possibly get for any team, any person. You know, if the doctor comes out from behind the curtain and says, hey, you've got can't get right-itis, it's the worst thing in the world, okay? It's the worst thing in the world. And that's what NC State suffered from earlier this year. There were games where the men's team would have absolute burners offensively. They couldn't get a stop to save their lives. They couldn't stop a runny nose with Robitussin, 3 rows of tissue, and 12 booster shots. They just couldn't do it. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball, and when we finally played some high-quality defense, we couldn't throw a rock in the ocean or we couldn't hit a super Walmart from the parking lot. And now here we are where they're finally bringing it all together, because I said this all along about this team. There is no reason why certain things that are going wrong are going wrong. There was no reason why Casey Morcell, who was a 40% three-point shooter last year, through the regular season this year was about 26, 27. What happened? It was that can't get right-itis. It was DJ Burns and all that he brings. There were multiple games where he was hard to play because of the defensive liability part of it. Mo Diarra, I'll tell you what. Ramadan, he's practicing Ramadan, observing Ramadan, and he's not eating till the sun goes down. I'll tell you what, he's filling up on boards alone. The young man he said, oh, don't worry about feeding me nothing. Just feed me those missed shots and I will make it happen. And he's showing all of these things that we heard were in his bag, but we didn't see it at a high level during the regular season. He's showing that he's a big man who's got the feathery touch. He can put it on the ground. He can defend the rim. And then Ben Middlebrooks, Benergy as they call him, because he's just a giant 6'8", 6'9" walking ball energy. And Michael O'Connell, he only hits big buckets. He don't want nothing to do with the regular ordained, regular smegular buckets. He wants the big moment. He wants all the pressure on him. And that's when he's going to knock it down. And, of course, DJ Horn and DJ Burns are doing what they do and percolating. Jaden Taylor is being the best 3-and-D guy he can be. They've gotten rid of that can't get right-itis. They're stringing together the great offensive performances with the great defensive performances, which we've seen both of from this team this year.
The Lady Wolfpack, how have they been able to – the first team to knock off a 1 seed on the ladies' side? What has been the key for them?
So, and let me say this, because Peter, I know you're a great guy. I know you wouldn't do revisionist history, but it's a lot of people who are going to practice revisionist history with this women's basketball team.
I would never.
They were predicted to finish 8th in the conference coming into the year. Mm-hmm. It just so happened to be that they beat more ranked teams during the regular season than anybody in the nation. That's what had people believing, they might be able to do it. And even then, when they lost to Notre Dame in the ACC championship, people said, there go the Wolfpack. There they go. They were hot to start it off, but they've taken some bad losses and tumbles, and they can't get it done. But I'm gonna tell you how the women basketball team has gotten it done. Westmore, if you're going to play for him, you got to get in the stands. You got to defend at a high level, or you will sit on that pine right next to him. Mm-hmm. They're defending at a high level, but here's the other part of it. There's timely scoring, and there's Isaiah James. There's timely scoring from everybody who's asked to step up. Everybody who, whatever your team does well, whatever you take away, that's fine. We'll find somebody else. Perfect example, Stanford in their extremely long front court, right? We know Vanderveer and what her teams are always going to bring. Yeah. They're going to be long. They're going to be long. You're never going to talk about a Stanford team that's undersized. So what was the game plan for that game? We need our guards to score. It has to be the guards. Y'all have to get her in foul trouble. Y'all have to go into her body. You have to do all the things. And then you talk about this game where they play a Texas team where you say they're deep and they've got good depth, but they don't quite have the girth and tonnage in terms of bigs to match up with a River Baldwin. So what's the game plan? We get Isaiah rolling, but we also going to lean on River down the stretch, who I believe had a 15 or 18-point second half. That is the stuff of what this is. It's so phenomenal, and that's what's getting them there. But I also want to say one last thing before I pass it back to you. Think about the likelihood. Normally when we see two teams go to the championship or go to a Final Four like this, men's and women's, at least one of them was predicted to be something special. Both of these teams picked middle of the pack in their conference. I'll tell you what, Superman and every single NC State athlete have something in common. They wear an S on their chest. And I'll tell you, these teams are playing like Supermen and Superwomen in this tournament.
Stay up to date all year on the North Carolina State Wolfpack by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Wolfpack on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, UConn. They absolutely rock at basketball. Before we get to that, we get around the diamond with plenty of baseball on opening weekend. Whether you're at the ballpark or on your couch, get into all the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Keeping an eye on the pitching matchup, looking for the home dog or a hot dog? FanDuel has all the ways to play this season. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on run lines, money lines, over-unders, and more. You don't have to worry about beer lines. You can even combine prop bets on things like strikeouts and home runs to increase your payout. Just 2 wins away, Alabama has 20-1 odds to win the national championship according to FanDuel. That's what happens when you face the favorites to win it all. In UConn, they are -190 to hoist the trophy. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on baseball all season long. That's worth $5. $5 to win 100 if Alabama wins 2 games? Come on. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? You have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The New York Yankees look for a crushing 4th straight win over the Astros in Houston to begin the season.
It's a sweep. They swept 4 games. It's a sweep. This is the one time that I'm not upset that my bold prediction was wrong, because my bold prediction was 3 out of 4. I said I had a good feeling. I just didn't think it was this good a feeling. Anyway, so the Yankees sweep the Astros in 4 games to open up the season. And after all the kvetching that I did about the schedule and how I didn't like that they were opening up with 4 games against Houston, in Houston, I didn't think it was fair. And I have no problem with it now. I don't think anyone has a problem with it. Houston fans probably have a problem with it, but I certainly don't have a problem with it. So what a fun series, honestly.
The South Carolina Gamecocks, they are blazing through the women's tournament. And they are a pristine 36-0 on the year.
The South Carolina Gamecocks, who are in a familiar place once again, the Final Four. 70-58 winners, over Oregon State, powered by, among other things, 15 points from freshman Tessa Johnson and 4 blocked shots from Ashlyn Watkins, the sophomore big, known as Swatkins by the South Carolina fam, the fans who swarmed Albany and will be in Cleveland as well.
And Nelly Korda. Maybe we should just do Nelly Korda. She's got 3 straight wins. Not 3 straight rounds, 3 straight tournament wins. She had to go to a playoff to win her latest. But talk about cold-blooded. She closed out shooting eagle birdie. Korda became the first LPGA Tour player in 8 years to win 3 straight starts, shooting a 7 under 65 to rally for a victory in the Ford Championship. Korda became the first LPGA Tour player in 8 years to win 3 straight starts, shooting a 7 under 65 to rally for a victory in the Ford Championship. And she's the first American woman in nearly 60 years. We are about a week and a half away from a potential of having a double Husky national title in college basketball. The men, they're headed to the Final Four to take on Alabama. The ladies, they've got a marquee matchup. They're going to have to fight on against Juju Watkins and the USC Trojans on the ladies' side. Mark Cetto from Locked On UConn joins me now. And Mark, oddly, on the men's side, it's a little bit more of a foregone conclusion than the women's side that they're going to be the title holders here. They have looked like the unstoppable force so far in this tournament. What have they done so well that has made them so tough for every team in their path to stop?
It's a combination of things, and thank you for having me, by the way. I really appreciate it. It's a combination of things. It starts with their defense. They've held some really good offenses to not a lot of points. They do one of 2 things. They either go on a run themselves, or as you noticed with Illinois, even on that 30-0 run, which is crazy to talk about, Illinois didn't score for almost an hour of real time. So it was 28-23 at halftime, and then all of a sudden it was 53-23. So to me, that's the reason why their defense is just as elite as their offense, slightly statistically not as good, but top 6 in the country, number 1 offense, number 6 defense. That's why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, and I want to get to the star-studded ladies tournament that we're all watching with bated breath here. But what is so remarkable to me about this UConn run right now is they're doing it without surefire star NBA talent. In a world where that is what stirs the drink in just about every program right now, recruiting the high-profile guys who are going to end up in the NBA, even guys like Coach K, had to adjust their strategy. How has UConn built this kind of dominant team without that elite future NBA talent?
Yeah, it's a great question. We had Michael Cohen on from Fox Sports last week, who wrote an article about how UConn built an offensive juggernaut. They lost to multiple 12 seeds back-to-back before they made their run last year and then this year. And Dan Hurley said, we need to make a change. And so they were like, there's no more rock fights. There's no more just defense. We need to get some offensive players. And so it was Luke Murray, I don't know if you're familiar, the son of Bill Murray.
I've heard of him.
Was an incredible offensive mind, mixture of European basketball, Turkish, FIBA, EuroLeague, plus the Golden State Warriors. And he's implemented that with Dan Hurley and Kamani Young, who are more New York, New Jersey, like they didn't want to do this, but they succumbed and said, listen, this makes sense. So they brought in guys who they call processors. You know how a quarterback processes information faster? Sure. That's what they wanted. They wanted guys who had high IQ, mixture with talent. And that's why you're seeing what you're seeing.
On the flip side, with the ladies, Gino Auriemma recently called Paige Beckers the best player in women's college basketball. I'm sure Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and Cameron Brink would have some, Juju Watkins would have some things to say about that. And Juju is going to have her chance to show it on Monday night at the Moda Center in Portland in the Elite Eight. It is a 3-seed UConn women's team. We're not used to seeing them that far down the seed line here. But Paige Beckers has been in this tournament unbelievable. I think if the tournament ended today, she'd have a really good case to be the most outstanding player in the tournament. How has she been able to elevate her game in this tournament?
You know, I would say that she's done similar to what people are seeing on the men's side with Donovan Clingan. They're finally healthy. Like Paige is coming off of an ACL. She's finally kind of back to who she normally is. And for those who think Gino caused a stir, listen, he's a tell it like it is guy. We totally get that. But he's also been around some players who are the greatest at their sport. And he's coached the best basketball player in college basketball many times, more so than any college basketball coach could talk about. So when he says we have the best college basketball player, bar none, you should listen to him.
That's absolutely fair. And I think it's hard to, or easy to forget now that when Paige came to UConn, she arrived with the kind of fanfare that Caitlin Clark gets now. That is the kind of player we thought she was capable of being. What do they need to do if they want to try and win this title? Because this is a as deep as we have seen the ladies field in a long time.
Yeah, I think Juju Watkins is going to cause a lot of problems for them. But as there was an LA Times article I read this morning, it's not Juju versus Paige, it's USC versus UConn.
Yeah.
Listen, just like the men or any team sport, you have your stars, right? If you watch today in the Final Four, Zach Edey versus Dalton Connect, it was the other guys hitting shots down the stretch when that game started getting close. So Purdue hit some of the role players hit some shots down the stretch, some threes when they got doubled, and Tennessee couldn't counter. That's the ball game. So that was almost a stalemate. So if you get a stalemate between Juju and Paige, it's going to be up to which team's role players do just enough to put them over the top.
Stay up to date on the Connecticut Huskies by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On UConn on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Browns may do something this year, just like we said last year, and the year before that, and the year before that. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute deals. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section, and Gametime picks the seats for big-time savings. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. For a limited time, all users can get $20 off any MLB purchase of $150 or more in the Gametime app with code FIRSTPITCH. Terms apply. That's code FIRSTPITCH, P-I-T-C-H, for $20 off from March 25th to April 14th. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. The Cleveland Browns. Well, let's just hear our Locked On NFL hosts about how the Browns may actually do something, anything this year.
So who is your non-Super Bowl contender from 2023 that could unseat them in 2024?
I'm going to Cleveland. That's right.
Nice.
I'm going with the Cleveland Browns. And the reason why is because I was pleasantly surprised with the way Coach Stefanski coached last year with the injuries, with Deshaun Watson not being available. I do remember this, though. I remember right at the very end, like the game before Watson actually was down for the year, he played lights out, and he started looking like the Deshaun Watson of old. And I was just sitting there thinking, like, they got some bad luck. I hear he's working his butt off this offseason, and they're going to get Nick Chubb back at some point. They tasted it a little bit last year. It's almost like the other night when I watched LeBron on the bench and I watched the Lakers win without him. Now everybody realizes what they can do, and Watson realizes what they can do without him. He doesn't have to come in here and earn that $230 million guaranteed all in one season. All you got to do, man, is just come in there and not screw this up.
The Browns' defense was incredible last year. Defense is highly volatile. The easiest and most straightforward path to winning in the NFL is elite quarterback play. The Browns have basically never had that. And I have no reason to believe that will change this year. Deshaun Watson has been a shell of his former self since coming to Cleveland. And that is without factoring in all of the ugliness off the field that comes with the trade and the guaranteed contract. And if it doesn't work, and it looks like it's not going to work, Cleveland already seemed like a cursed city. But it just seems like the football gods are not going to reward such a craven move by the Cleveland Browns. Certainly not in the Deshaun Watson era. But I wouldn't be surprised if we had another 50 years of this with Cleveland. It is ineptitude after ineptitude. And it makes you wonder if there is something just rotten at the core of that organization, of the way that they do things and the way that they've done things for a long time. That would explain a lot. And finally, shooting a three-pointer in Portland may be a bit more difficult or easier than it should be. Just depends on what side of the floor you're on. Per the ABC broadcast, the three-point lines in Texas NC State were uneven on the two sides of the court. They were literally different distances on one side versus the other. Now, both programs knew that and decided to play anyway. 3-seed NC State, of course, beat 1-seed Texas. We talked about that. But this is just unacceptable. And it's another example of the ridiculous way the women's game is treated. This would never, ever, ever be allowed to happen. But they would stop the game and repaint the lines if this was an Elite Eight or a Final Four game on the men's bracket. They would. And you know they would. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube and on the free Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports today, who do we like to upset UConn? Anybody? Bueller? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.